Welcome to Arley. It is where I grew up and where my family now lives. Each generation since the 18th century has made some contribution to the development of the gardens. And that is why there is such a wide variety of style and design, together with an enormous range of plants. We hope in this video to give you an impression of how the appearance of the gardens change as the seasons progress. I can assure you they are well worth a visit at any time in the year. It was in 1470 that the Warburtons built their first house at Arley, and this is the date of the Grade 1 listed Cruck Barn, which visitors first see as they approach the hall along the Pleach Lime Avenue. The present Arley Hall dates from the early 19th century. It was partially demolished in 1968. In the 1980s and 90s, new houses were built on the old foundations, and this helped to recreate the architectural integrity of the site as a whole. Visitors are struck by the intimate and welcoming atmosphere of the hall and instantly recognize it as a home, containing as it does the family pictures, furniture and other contents which are on view. It is a good example of the Victorian Jacobean style of architecture. Particularly important features are the elaborate wood carvings, the plasterwork ceilings and the grand staircase. The principal downstairs rooms are the gallery, the drawing room, the dining room and the library, all of which contain fine pictures, furniture and porcelain. The Emperor's room on the first floor is so called because it is where Prince Louis Napoleon, later Emperor Napoleon III of France, slept when he stayed at Arley for some months in 1847-48. Nowadays, although the family use the hall for social occasions, it is much in demand for functions and events of various kinds, including in particular civil weddings and wedding receptions. Next to the hall is a private chapel built in the 1840s, designed by Anthony Salvin. This is open to visitors, and evensong services are held there once a month. Although thousands of visitors each year enjoy the splendour of the hall, the highlight of the visit for a lot of people are the gardens, many coming several times a year. There's probably been a garden of some kind at Arley for many centuries, though the earliest records of it appear on a map of 1744. On the site of the present gardens were broad paths described as the old walks, and these probably were interspersed among fruit trees and vegetable plots. When Sir Peter and Lady Elizabeth Warburton came to live at Arley in 1743, they built the brick walls which still stand and are so integral to the design. They also laid out a large romantic pleasure ground of shrubberies. The main framework of what we see today was laid out by my great-great-grandparents, Roland and Mary Egerton Warburton. Among their iconic creations are the Pleach Lime and Quercus Ilex avenues, the Furlong Walk, the very ornamental yew hedges, and the double herbaceous border. This is possibly the earliest such border in the country. It is shown on a plan of 1846, which is on display. Since Roland and Mary's time, 4 generations of the family have each contributed new features, while always preserving the original overall design. It was my mother Elizabeth Ashbrook who was most influential in this way. She was a passionate and artistic gardener who lived at Arley all her life. It was about 50 years ago when she and my father first opened the gardens to visitors on a regular basis. She redesigned several areas, notably the walled garden, which was previously one of 3 kitchen gardens at Arley. As well as establishing an extensive collection of shrub roses, she replanted the rootery and created the sundial circle, the herb garden and the scented garden. In the early 1990s, we inherited an early 19th century wirework arbour from my father's old home in Ireland, and this was a great excuse for my wife Zoe to redesign the centre of the kitchen garden and create the arbour walk. This provides a succession of colour throughout the season. Backed by pillar roses and giant cardoons, the beds are filled in spring with tulips and small bulbs, and these are followed in May by iris and peonies. Later we have annuals such as cornflowers, clearme and cosmos, which echo the airy and delicate structure of the arbour and which flower until the first frosts. My contribution has been the Grove. This is a woodland garden and small arboretum which has been gradually developed over the past 35 years. Of informal and naturalistic design, it is now well established and is in sharp contrast to the essentially formal design of the main garden. It contains a wide variety of flowering shrubs and exotic trees, including a collection of over 400 different varieties of rhododendrons and azaleas. It comes into its own in the early spring when the camellias and magnolias are in flower and there are masses of daffodils and narcissus planted in drifts. Then for several weeks there's a magnificent display of rhododendrons and azaleas and other flowering trees and shrubs. Later in the year, hydrangeas make a good show, and then the autumn colours. The rest of this video will show you what the gardens look like throughout the seasons. I hope you will find this helpful and that it will encourage you to visit at other times in the year. My wife Zoe and I, and indeed all our family, are totally committed to Arley. The gardens require a huge amount of thought, planning and work, and we and our dedicated team of gardeners, under the head gardener Gordon Bailey, are constantly striving to maintain them to the highest standard possible. They give us a huge amount of pleasure, as well, I may say, as some challenges, which are often weather-related. But it is all so worthwhile, and as people often remark, we are very fortunate to have this opportunity. We hope very much that all our visitors will have a really interesting, enjoyable and relaxing time here. If that happens, my family and I, and indeed everyone at Arley, will be delighted. So I do hope you will come and see us again very soon.
As a gardener and designer, one of the real delights about coming to Arley Gardens is the fact that it's just awash with a multitude of visionary delights. Take the herbaceous borders here in high summer, the artistry, the composition, the orchestration of plant material is just extraordinary. It's no wonder that these borders, in their historic form, inspired generations of gardens, and the English garden really wouldn't exist had it not been for the creation of these borders. They stimulated our interest in a selection of plants and the composition of those plants, and that's something that as English and British gardeners we thrive on worldwide today. But this garden is about much more than herbaceous borders. Step out into the rose garden and breathe in the fragrance on a day like today, when it's still and the sun's shining. It is an absolute delight. But there's spring delights too, in the woodland, the rhododendrons, the camellias. the ericaceous specimens that wow us with their lipstick colours at a time of year when the skies are so often muted. It doesn't matter what time of the year I come, there's always something that I wish I could take home.